Welcome to TNT. It is May 2nd, 2023, and the months just are whipping by here. So anyway, for those of you on the video recording, we are still in Jim Richards' book, Moving Your Invisible Boundaries, and we are starting chapter 10 this evening. And chapter 10 is entitled Healing the Broken Heart. And when Jesus started his ministry, he was speaking in one of the synagogues, and he opened the scrolls and he was reading from from Isaiah, excuse me, not from the Psalms. He was reading from Isaiah 61, and he read the section that at that point was prophesying what Jesus would be doing. And Jesus was telling the people the reason he came was to heal the brokenhearted and set the captives free. And so tonight we are going to begin talking about what that broken heart looks like and where it comes from. And this, there's a lot to this, a lot more than you might think. So tonight is an introduction to it. And again, I mentioned to Barbara and Jessica as we were getting started that there's no way we're going to finish the chapter tonight because there's a lot to it. But before we jump into the contents of the chapter, I want to get us focused on the reality of what is going on inside of us and how it relates to this chapter. And sometimes it's difficult to recognize brokenness, what a broken heart is, because we have become so accustomed to our patterns and our patterns of behavior that they don't seem broken. They just seem normal and natural to us. Partly because we see the world around us and the way people in the world function, and we seem to fit in. And so it doesn't seem broken to us. In Galatians chapter 6, verses 7 and 8, and I'm reading from the Passion Translation here. Oh, there's Julie. Let me let her in. Okay. In Galatians chapter 6, verses 7 and 8, says, God will never be mocked, for what you plant will always be the very thing you harvest. The harvest you reap reveals the seed that you planted. If you plant the corrupt seeds of self-life into the natural realm, you can expect a harvest of corruption. Hi, Julie. We're just getting started here. So if you plant the good seeds of spirit life, you will reap beautiful fruits that grow from the everlasting life of the Spirit. And that principle of sowing or reaping what we sow always, 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 always applies. That is a foundational truth of God's world. That is how he created everything to function. What you plant is what you will get back. You can't plant wheat seeds and get an apple crop. You can't plant corn seeds and get a wheat crop, okay? And now our two favorite verses come into play too. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Guard well your heart, for it determines everything in your life. Sowing and reaping also apply to the heart. You're never going to get away from that foundational structure of how the Lord created the world to work. What is planted in our hearts is what our lives will look like and feel like. What is in here is what we will get. Again, you can't plant corn seeds and get a wheat crop. You can't plant discord and brokenness in the heart and end up with a well-run, smoothly running life out here. It just doesn't work that way. So going on from there. in Matthew chapter 15, verse 18 from the Passion Translation, it says, but what comes out of the mouth reveals the core of your heart. Out of the, oh, and then in another translation, it is out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. So how do we know what is really in our heart? Before we can speak anything, those words have to go through our mind and then out of our mouth. So all we have to know what is really in our heart is listen to the words that come out of our mouth and listen and listen to the thoughts that are going on in our head. This whole process requires that we really start paying attention to everything we are thinking and saying, not only to ourselves, because you know what? Sometimes we talk to ourselves. Do you guys ever talk to yourself when there's nobody else in the room? I mean, we all do it, right? What words are coming out of your mouth in that situation? What are you saying? Do you ever ruminate on situations that have happened to you, or you're replaying, or you play these scenarios in your head where you go, were you thinking ahead that if you were in this situation with these people, you would say this and you would say that, or you would react this way, or you replay hurtful situations in your mind? I mean, you're just constantly replaying those things over and over again, and you talk to yourself about them and you think about them. All of those things that we say and that we feel and that we ruminate on, I love that word, those are seeds that we are planting. So what are the thoughts and scenarios in your mind that you play over and over again? What are the words that are coming out of your mouth? Not only when you're by yourself, but when you're talking to other people too. Are you talking negatively about situations over and over and over and over again? You're just dwelling on those situations. Guess what? Every time we do that, we're planting more seeds. Now, when we are stuck in those places, those things are coming from a brokenness in our heart. That's what the Lord came to heal. It's like, Jessica's maybe not old enough to remember this, but for those of us that are, remember the records that we used to play, those round things? And remember when there would be a scratch on the record, and then it would just sit there and play the same thing over? I mean, just, a couple measures, just, it would get stuck in that rut and just keep playing that same thing over and over and over again. That's what our hearts will do. We get a brokenness in our heart, and then we play it over and over and over and over again. And every time we play it over again, we're planting more seeds so that we can play it over and over again. It just gets to be a vicious cycle. And sometimes those seeds that we plant, not only are they going to create life, recreate life for us, so that I used to play those tiny records at my grandma's house all the time. Oh, yay. Jessica does remember. Yes. Yep. Those little ones. Oh my goodness. Yes. I had a bunch of those when I was a little girl.
For kids. Yeah, for kids.
Yes, I love those. I was so excited when I got to play those records, because some of them were the songs from Captain Kangaroo and all the shows on TV. Oh my goodness, now I'm really dating myself. But yes, exactly. And for kids, they came in fun colors. Remember I had a bright yellow one and a red one, and I don't remember what other colors they were, but yeah, for kids, they would make them fun colors. That was exciting. Anyway, we are planting a crop with our words. And sometimes what the words that we plant don't recreate the exact scenarios that we're talking about, but I'm just gonna, speaking of planting seeds, I'm gonna plant this seed right now. But what we're gonna be getting into is that we plant seeds with our words that make life continue to feel the same over and over and over again. Okay, we get stuck in negative, hurtful patterns, and sometimes it's stuff other people have done to us, and our body gets so used to feeling that, and we'll talk about why as we go along, but that as we're speaking those words out, we're recreating that feeling, so life always feels the same. So anyway, just wanted to put that in there. We are planting, oh, and then, like I said, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. What is in our heart that is coming out of our mouth, that's how life looks. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. What we are creating through that process is what our life looks like and feels like. Okay, on page 107 in the book, Jim gives a foundation for this whole process, and it says this. It's toward, if you're looking at the book, it's right almost the last sentence of the page. It says, we need to perceive and interpret the world through a heart that fully believes the finished work of Jesus and sees itself as one with him in that work. That's what a healed and whole heart looks like. Let me say that again. We need to perceive and interpret the world through a heart that fully believes the finished work of Jesus and sees itself as one with him in that work. That's what a healed and whole heart looks like. Last week when we did the meditation during communion of seeing ourselves on the cross, and along with whatever issue or issues you took with you, areas that of hurt, of lack, of whatever it was that you wanted to see conquered at the cross, and Jesus became that issue for you. That is the process that we are talking about. The finished work of Jesus on the cross. Emphasis on the word finished. We can't just go partway through the process. We have to identify with the finished work. Oh, Julie, where was that on page 107? It was at the very second to the last sentence, Julie. There's only one sentence after it. It's the last full paragraph. It's the last sentence on that page. So here is what you're welcome. Here is what the finished work of Jesus looks like on the cross. Because the three parts of the finished work of Jesus are death, burial, and resurrection. So in the death, he became sin. He became the curse. 2 Corinthians 5:21 says he became sin. In Galatians 3:13, it says he became the curse. And in 2 Corinthians chapter 8, it says he became poor so that we could become rich. He became sin. He became the curse. He became lack for us. In the burial part of it, he takes that sin and the curse and the lack, and he buries them in the pit of hell. He takes them down to the pit of hell on our behalf, and he buries them there. The third part of the finished work of Jesus is the resurrection, when he raises completely restored, free from sin, free from the curse, free from lack. And now going back to Jim's statement, we need to perceive and interpret the world through a heart that fully believes the finished work of Jesus and sees itself as one with him in that work. In other words, you see yourself that anything that is sin, that is of the curse, that is of lack, that is of hurt, that is of emptiness, and in any way, shape, or form in your life, that you see it, that it has gone through that process with Jesus. You see him become that thing on the cross. You see him take it to the pit of hell. And then you see him raise up totally restored without that. And that you went through that process with him in that area of your life. So I want you to again think about these things that these places where that you ruminate on, that you go over and over and over again in your mind, that you speak about all the time, whatever. Can you see that he became that on the cross? He brought that very thing to the pit of hell, and he came up restored without that. And we benefit from it fully just by identifying with his finished work on the cross in that very area. As Jesus is in this world, so are we. That 1 John 4:17. If Jesus is raised and whole and free from that thing, that area of hurt or lack, whether it's relationships, finances, health, career, whatever, if Jesus is free from it, we can learn to identify in our hearts, in total, that we are free from that hurt as well. Do we have to figure out how that's going to manifest in our life? No. We just have to believe that it will manifest in our life because of the finished work of cross, of Jesus on the cross. I'm just going to keep emphasizing that. And we have to learn to picture ourselves, wow, I don't have to have those feelings of whatever in my heart anymore about blah, 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 because Jesus completed that for me on the cross. In any way that we don't see ourselves as complete as Christ is, that very situation in our lives is fully and completely provided for, healed, and made whole. Any area where we are struggling, it doesn't matter what it is. Do you see yourself complete and whole and provided for according to his riches and glory in Christ Jesus? That is what we have available. And it's not about you working for it or having to prove for it. It is about a change of heart. And that's what healing the broken heart is all about. We're going to get to that in a little bit. We are separated, disconnected from the fullness of Zoe life, which is God life, the kind of life that he wants us to live, and the promises for every area of life that he has given. That is where any and all brokenness is coming from. If in any way our instant reaction to whatever happens is not, oh, I am provided for in Christ. I am confident in his provision. I am confident in his love. That was dealt with at the cross. If that is not our immediate and continued reaction, then there is some brokenness going on in our hearts. And that's what Jesus came to heal. And there are places where, as we go into the book in depth, we are going to learn how those things got in there. How did we get into a situation where our heart is separated from those promises? And how did we get in a situation where we are struggling to bring that into our lives? We are going to be dealing with all of that. As time goes on, ladies, I'm just going to encourage you, really start being aware of your thoughts throughout the day? What am I thinking on? Where am I letting my thoughts go? What are the words coming out of my mouth, whether I'm talking to myself or to other people? What are those? Because that is the indication of what is really in our hearts. I'm just going to ask this. What is your, and here's another telltale sign. What is your reaction to the unexpected? Or to someone else's hurtful behavior towards you? Is it anger, frustration, fear? Fear is a huge one. Fear is a huge one. Yes, Julie agrees. Yes, yes, yes. Fear is huge. Fear is what underlies every other feeling of lack. If it's finances, you are afraid you're not going to have enough. If it's a relationship, I'm afraid this person is going to hurt me, or I'm afraid I'm not going to have the relationship I want. I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. Fear is the underlying ingredient for all of those. And I want you to, I want you to think here for a minute. Think about Jesus and the disciples. Think about the disciples' reactions in the storms. Okay? What was their reaction? Immediate fear. They thought they were going to die. Lord, we're going to die. These storms are so bad. And Jesus was, he admonished them. Oh, bye, Jessica. Oh, Jessica says bye-bye. Oh, okay.
You said, what's your reaction when somebody's mean?
Oh, I see. Okay. There we go. Bye-bye. Yeah, there you go. Jesus admonished the disciples because he said, guys, you don't get it. Did you see me feed the thousands with just this little bit of food? Do you understand that I have power that you don't get? And because I'm showing it to you, you also have that authority here on earth. You could be doing the same things. And his disciples reacted in fear. What is your reaction? Like I said, when the unexpected happens, and it's not necessarily a positive thing. When a storm comes into your life, what is your reaction? You don't have to answer here. You don't have to answer, but I want you to be honest with yourself. Okay. Do you tell all of your friends, oh, you won't believe what just happened, blah, blah, da, 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 da. I mean, you get wound up and you're telling all these people what the bad thing that just happened, and you panic and you whatever, like the disciples did. And we're human. I get it. We have all been there. Okay. Because they responded in fear. Okay. The boy with the seizures, the disciples could not cast out the demons from him. They'd been healing a ton of other people, but boy, this one was big. This kid was, they tried to get the demon out of him, and this demon, there was a lot, or was strong, and they had to go to Jesus. Jesus, we couldn't get this one. And again, oh, you faithless generation, was what Jesus said to them. He admonished them again because they let their physical eyes look at the problem and go, whoa, that's big. Instead of, if Jesus had had that issue when he was feeding the thousands, oh my gosh, there's all these people and just this little bit of food, he would not have been able to feed the people. And next week we'll get into, we're going to repeat it next week, talking about how Jesus responded to that. But he looked at the disciples because they were not able to get rid of that demon because they were looking at the overwhelm of how big that demon was and how big and strong they thought that demon was. They were focusing on the problem like they focused on the storm, and so they couldn't get beyond it. Now, think about the difference, and here's where we're headed, ladies, down the road, okay? Think about Peter, the man who denied Jesus 3 times because he was too afraid to acknowledge his association with Jesus. There again, he responded in fear. His heart, there was brokenness in there. He did not have the courage to stand up for Jesus. He didn't like that response. He was ashamed of himself, but that was his response. But now think about Peter down the road. That's the same guy that when he came across the cripple in front of the crippled man in front of the temple, he was able to look at him and say, well, I don't have any money with me, but what I do have, in the name of Jesus of Nazareth, rise up and walk. Whoa! Do you think his heart perspective had changed just a little bit? We can all make that journey. And that's what this journey is all about. Going from those disciples that, oh, we're gonna die in the storm. And that was better than money. You got that right, Jessica. Absolutely. Absolutely. But with what would have been easier for somebody to do? Hand him a handful of change, or have the confidence in the authority to say, oh, in the name of Jesus, rise up and walk. Yeah, that's where we can be, but we can't do that from a place where our heart is not absolutely, totally, 1000% convinced of the finished work of Christ, the death, burial, and resurrection, death of the sin and the curse and lack, and rising up without it through the power of the Lord, and that's where we walk. That is the transformation. That is the journey that we are on. Getting from where the disciples were to what they became on the other side of the cross. We are now on that side of the cross. So we have full access to that. It is that. Oh, I wanted, okay. The separation that we experience from that reality of who we are in Jesus, that reality causes more hurt and pain. And it keeps that vicious cycle going. And it literally is getting to a place where we jump off of that vicious cycle and become Peter, who Peter was on the other side of the cross. Here's kind of a funny example. I was trying to think of an analogy, but what is in our hearts is like if you have bad tooth decay, it is what you are swallowing from your mouth can go all the way through your body and cause disease throughout your body. So that simple, what seems like not that big a deal, but what is in our mouth can go affect our entire body. What is in our hearts affects our whole physical being and our entire life. Welcome, Rebecca. Good to have you. Anyway.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you.
If you can take care of that mouth infection, guess what? Your whole body can heal. If we can take care of this condition of the heart, this brokenness in our heart, our entire physical being can heal, as well as every aspect of our life can heal, because all of everything that Jesus gained for us through his death, burial, and resurrection, I'm just going to keep hammering that, that is released into every aspect of our lives. Okay, so where does this brokenness come from? And we're just going to kind of touch on this tonight. And we've touched on it a little bit before, but I want to keep bringing these things back so they become automatic with you. The first 12 years or so of our life are the formative years, especially the first 5 years. And here's why. During those years, our brainwave patterns are slowed way down. When a baby is first born, their brainwave patterns are in the delta brainwave length, and so it's a very slow brainwave, and so things come in, kind of bypass the brain and are able to get straight to the heart. So what a child experiences emotionally, that is what goes in and imprints on their heart. A heart belief is formed from information or an event combined with strong emotion. Okay, so it forms those patterns in their heart as they start transitioning. They go through delta and then theta and then alpha waves, and by the time they're getting closer to 12 years old or so, they're kind of coming out of the alpha wave stage, and then they get into beta brainwaves, which is where we function as adults. At that point, our intellectual mind kind of takes over during the daytime. At night, we go back into that theta and delta sleep. That's why we can sleep like an infant sleeps. Our brainwave patterns slow down. And that's why at night you can dream and your subconscious mind can bring things up, because your intellectual mind has slowed way down again. Okay, so now those heart beliefs are formed as a child. I mean, what drives our life, what becomes our hidden GPS, most of it was formed in those first few years of our life, which we will get into more later on. But those are so crucial, what we picked up in those years, those formative years. And Jessica, that makes sense. I think most of my bad heart beliefs come from childhood. Kids can be mean. Oh, yes. Not only kids, but you know what? An adult can say something and a child doesn't, I mean, the adult doesn't even realize what they're saying, but the child can pick it up and just, it's horrible. And I'm just going to give you one quick example that jumped into my head. I remember when I was 3 years old, my hair had gotten long enough that my mom could put it up in a ponytail. And I was so excited. I was a little girl and I had a ponytail in my hair, and I wanted to show my dad. And he was coming home from work. Teachers, yes. Oh, teachers are huge influence. That's why what's going on in the schools right now is so horrifying, because these young kids are picking up, but that's another topic for another day. Anyway, I was so excited because Daddy was coming in the door from work. And I was never emotionally close to my dad. It's another long story, but I still respected him. So I wanted to run to him and have him see my cute ponytail. When I got to the door, he looked down, and instead of saying, "Oh, honey, that looks really cute," excuse my French, he looked down, he said, "I don't know why anybody would want to fix their hair named after a horse's ass." And I went, I remember that. It just hit me, the emotions I felt in that moment. And I remember just walking away so hurt. My dad probably didn't remember the next day that he said it, but it stuck with me. And it did, I mean, anyway, lots of things, but those impressions from childhood are so strong. And as adults, we can experience the same thing. Because when we get under stress, and again, we'll talk more about this later too, but when we get under stress, our frontal cortex kind of shuts down. The blood flow goes away from there out to our extremities for the fight or flight instinct that kicks in. And so we're not thinking real clearly. So again, things can bypass our intellectual brain where we can sort things out and go and be rational, goes from our right path or bypasses our intellectual mind and goes straight into the heart. So in stressful situations, guess what you're affecting again? Your heart. So if we have negative thoughts, negative feelings, negative beliefs, fears, all of that, and it goes straight into the heart, guess what? We are creating more negative because then our heart is going to keep that pattern going. What we say, what we do, we're planting more seeds. We're getting more of a harvest. It gets to be that vicious cycle. Okay, because again, those things have been able to go bypass our mind. It's the same process that hypnotists use. They get your brainwave patterns to slow down. They get you relaxed and to slow down, and you become very suggestible in that state. Because guess where the stuff is going? Into your heart. Your intellect is not taking care of it. Now, on the good side, that's the process we used last week when we did that meditation of going to the cross. Because if you use it in a positive way and you get those brain waves to slow down and you can go into that meditative state that's impacting your heart, you can create new heart beliefs. If you can create a new heart belief that every issue in your life, every issue has been dealt with at the cross through his death, burial, and resurrection, and you can create that new heart belief, wow, that is what changes your life. So that is the process. Okay, whoops, gotta turn the page here. I don't think we're going to finish this tonight, but that's all right. We will, wherever we have to stop, we will. I do want to go on page 104 in the book. At the top of the page in the first full paragraph, he's talking about religion. Religion is another place that we can get impacted in our heart beliefs, because if we grew up in a church that was, stuck in old religion type stuff, that's an authority figure, and our heart goes, ooh, we have to listen to the authority figures, and it becomes a heart belief, especially if you grew up in that environment as a child. And he says, religion demands change, not transformation. Change is just outward behavior. Okay, that's what religion is demanding. They going through the process of real heart transformation through peace and through freedom, because the Lord gives us freedom of choice. Jesus never forced anybody to change. In fact, think of the rich young ruler. Jesus told him exactly what he needed to do, and the rich young ruler walked away. And I'm sure it hurt Jesus' heart, but he let him walk away. God did not force Adam and Eve to make the right decision. He didn't force the Israelites to go into the promised land the first time they came there. He let them make their own choice, their own decision. Religion controls. The Lord gives us freedom. So anyway, religion focuses on behavior independent of the heart. They go through an intellectual, you know this in your head, so you choose to do this. They don't deal with changing the heart. So this isn't going to last. When this is all it is. Yes, this has to change too, or thinking has to change too, but if it's not heart transformation, it's only temporary. It's like hair color. It's only temporary. Religion focuses on behavior independent of the heart. Religion tells us to earn what Jesus has given freely. Religion controls us through fear. Ah, there it is. There's that fear thing again that we talked about a little bit ago. The Lord does not deal in fear at all. Religion tells us what's wrong with us instead of what has been made right about us. Religion fears freedom more than anything. Religion believes people who are given freedom will run wild. Well, the result is they might just do that. Okay, that's their choice. So through fear, we recreate the same failure as was shown in Israel. We do not get people serving and connecting to God from their heart. They put their trust in their dead religious works, which makes them feel that God owes them something for their performance. And then that gets to be a vicious cycle. Well, okay, if I can do enough good to get God to do, nope. Going to read from Galatians chapter 5, verse 4 in the NLT. For if you are trying to make yourselves right with God by keeping the law, you have been cut off from Christ. You have fallen away from God's grace. That doesn't mean that we have lost our salvation, but that if we are depending on our works in any way, instead of the finished work of what Christ did for our provision, we have just cut ourselves off from the power of the Lord to work in our lives. The very thing that they think they're going to try and get God and get him to do all this, it's the very thing that has just cut them off from power. The only place we can stand continually for the provision of every need that we have is by recognizing the death, burial, and resurrection and what Jesus accomplished for us there. Here's kind of a funny example. I knew somebody that worked in the electrical field, lighting, electrical work. They worked with so much electricity, and they, would end up, by mistake or whatever, touching live wires every once in a while. They got to the point where they could handle electricity and touch a live wire and put a light bulb in their mouth, and the light bulb would light up. Yeah, I don't think I want to be that person, but here's the deal. Yeah, we can create some effects on our own. He could, get that light bulb to come on for a little bit, but how much of his strength is it going to take to keep that light bulb going for an extended period of time? And as long as he does that, he can't get food in his mouth. I mean, think about the limits on his life, as opposed to taking that light bulb and screwing it into a socket in the ceiling and flipping a switch, and it just stays on automatically. It's the same for us. You can either be plugged into your own power and your own strength, which is, yeah, yuck, or you can plug into the Lord's power by seeing yourself in every situation with the fullness of God that comes to us through the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. And with that, I think I'm going to stop tonight, because the next section, that's going to be another big section. I'm just going to mark on my sheet that that's where I stopped for tonight, so that we can go into prayer. But this heart work, this healing the heart and understanding the broken heart, is so foundational for getting us into a consistent place of peace and provision with the Lord, which is possible. It is possible to be there. Okay. So right now, is the assignment is to begin to be aware of where your thoughts are going throughout the day. Really be paying attention to that. What are the words that you are saying to others about your situation? And what are the words that you are saying to yourself regarding your situations? Are they words, if you had been in the storm with the disciples, would your reaction have been like theirs? Oh God, we're gonna die. This storm is so bad. Ah. Or could you have stayed in total peace like Jesus did and said, um, storm, be still. In the name, I speak to you, be still. With any storm that comes to you in your life, finances, friends, family situations, health, blah, 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 whatever it is. Do you go, oh God, the doctor just said or this or that, whatever the storm is, oh man. Or can you say, wait, Jesus took care of this at the cross. You know what? I have full, oh wait, I have um, full provision from the Lord for this situation. And you just speak it out in total peace. And then that's the end of it. That's the end of it. Where are you in the process? Anyway, be thinking about that over this next week. And with that, thank you for those who are joining us on the recorded version of tonight. And we will see you again soon. And we are now going into our prayer time.